Everyone wants me, but I want you human. The alien girl chooses the human. The galaxy was old. Older than memory, older than stories, older than most of the civilizations that now lived inside it. Empires had risen, ruled, and fallen like dust in starlight. Some races were ancient and powerful. Some were clever and patient. Some believed they were perfect. Humanity was none of those things, not yet. Earth had joined the Galactic Union only 12 standard cycles ago. In galactic terms, that was nothing. Humans were still considered young, emotional, and unpredictable. Many species watched them with curiosity, others watched with doubt, and some watched with quiet interest. The celestial convergence was one of the most important events in the galaxy. It happened once every 50 cycles. Leaders, scholars, and envoys from hundreds of worlds gathered in one place. Agreements were made here, futures were decided here. This cycle, everyone was watching one person. Her name was Aelith of the Luminari. Aelith stood at the center of the grand hall, glowing softly beneath the crystal lights. Her species did not shine on purpose. It was simply how they were. Their skin reflected energy, their eyes held calm intelligence, and their presence carried natural authority. The Luminari were respected across the galaxy. Wise, balanced, powerful without being cruel, and Aelith was special even among her people. She was a voice-bearer, chosen to represent not just her world, but its values. Tradition demanded that during the convergence she would choose one species to stand with her, not as rulers or servants, but as symbolic partners. The choice often shaped alliances for generations. Every powerful civilization wanted that choice. They wanted her. Across the hall, envoys waited in silent lines, tall beings of metal and light, floating thinkers wrapped in mist, insect-like diplomats with perfect posture, all of them confident, all of them certain they deserved to be chosen. They whispered plans, they calculated outcomes. They imagined the future bending toward them. At the far edge of the hall, almost unnoticed, stood a single human. His name was Evan Carter. He wore the standard Earth diplomatic uniform, simple, practical, and plain compared to the colorful designs around him. His posture was respectful but not stiff. His hands were folded calmly in front of him. Evan was not important. At least that was how the galaxy saw him. He was not a leader, not a warrior, not a famous scientist. He was a cultural liaison, chosen because he listened well and spoke honestly. Earth had sent him knowing they had little chance of being selected. Humanity did not expect miracles. Evan looked around the hall, feeling very small. The ceiling stretched high above, showing a slow-moving image of the stars outside. The air hummed with translation fields and energy systems. Every sound felt loud. Every movement felt watched. He took a slow breath. Just observe, he reminded himself, that's your job. Across the room, Aelith's gaze moved carefully from one envoy to another. She listened as representatives spoke of their achievements. One empire spoke of fleets that protected entire sectors. Another spoke of knowledge gathered over 10,000 cycles. Another spoke of efficiency, order, and perfect stability. Their words were smooth, practiced, safe. Aelith listened politely, yet something felt empty. She had studied many civilizations before coming here. Data told her what they had built. History showed what they had conquered, but data did not show why they existed. Then her eyes paused. At the edge of the gathering, she noticed the human. He was not speaking, not presenting anything. He was watching the room with open curiosity, not hunger. When another envoy spoke, Evan listened. When others grew loud, he stayed quiet. Aelith tilted her head slightly. Interesting, she thought. She activated her personal translator and sent a soft inquiry across the room. Human representative, her voice echoed gently in Evan's mind. Why are you silent? Evan froze for half a second. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. He swallowed and answered honestly. I wasn't asked to speak, he said. And I don't believe words mean much unless they're needed. There was a ripple of reaction. Some envoys felt insulted. Others felt amused. Aelith felt curious. Then why are you here? She asked. Evan thought for a moment. To learn, he said. And to understand how others see the galaxy. That answer was not impressive, but it was real. The convergence continued. Speeches ended. Formal displays concluded. Still, Aelith's thoughts returned to the human. She noticed how he spoke kindly to lesser-known delegates. How he helped a nervous junior envoy find their place. How he showed respect without fear. Humans were strange. They had short lives, weak bodies, no ancient wisdom. Yet they filled the galaxy quickly, adapting to environments that challenged older species. They failed often, but they kept moving forward. Aelith had read Earth's history, conflict, recovery, hope, mistakes, growth again and again. As the lights dimmed, the hall fell silent. It was time. Aelith stepped forward. "This convergence," she said, her voice calm and clear, "marks a turning point. By tradition, I must choose a species to stand with me as a symbol of shared values." The hall held its breath. Many envoys already believed they knew the outcome. Aelith turned slowly. She looked at the empires. She looked at the ancient powers. She looked at the ones who wanted her choice more than anything. Then she looked at the human. Gasps filled the room. Evan felt his heart stop. She raised her hand slightly, pointing, not dramatically, not proudly, but with certainty. "I choose the human," Aelith said. Silence, pure, impossible silence. Then voices erupted. Shock, confusion, anger, disbelief. Evan stared at her, unsure he had heard correctly. "I what?" he whispered. Aelith met his eyes. For the first time, she smiled, not as a symbol, not as a diplomat, but as a person. "Everyone wants me," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. "But I want you human." The galaxy changed in that moment. And no one yet understood why. The hall was silent for only a heartbeat. Then the galaxy erupted. Voices shouted, translations overlapping in a chaotic hum. Envoys argued, whispered, and questioned. Some stomped, others floated, and a few simply froze, unable to believe what they had just heard. The choice of a human, a young, small species in galactic terms, was unprecedented. It was almost impossible. Evan stood frozen, his heart racing, palms sweaty but still held neatly in front of him. He had never expected anything like this. In his mind, the human role was simple: observe, learn, and support his species' voice. And now, somehow, he had been thrust into the center of the galaxy's most powerful stage. Aelith's calm presence countered the storm of chaos around them. Her glow was steady, serene, a living reminder of her authority. She did not raise her voice. She did not panic. She simply waited, letting the room realize that her decision was final. One of the oldest empires in the galaxy, the Tharvian Collective, spoke first. Their envoy, a towering being of metal and organic tissue, stepped forward. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "This is impossible," the Tharvian said, its translator echoing the sound. "The Luminari have always chosen wisely, and now they choose a human, one of the youngest species in the Union. You must be joking." Aelith inclined her head slightly. "I am not joking," she replied. Her voice carried a quiet strength that silenced the next wave of objections. "Humans are not the oldest, they are not the strongest, yet in their actions they show qualities worth respect." The hall murmured. Some delegates scoffed. Others leaned in, curious. Evan blinked. "Respect me," he thought, disbelief tightening his chest. He wanted to speak, to explain himself, but the words stuck in his throat. How could he explain that he had done nothing remarkable? He was just a human. Aelith turned slightly, her gaze resting on him. "Do not be afraid," she said. "This choice is not about power, it is about values." The words felt like a shield. Evan nodded, barely understanding why, but trusting her calm. Across the hall, whispers of rebellion started to grow. Some envoys had expected a Luminari to pick one of their own kind, or a species that had wealth, fleets, or ancient knowledge. Now their plans, their ambitions, their calculations, they were in danger of crumbling. A delegation of Corvites, a species famous for political manipulation and intrigue, floated forward with measured steps. "Aelith," their leader said softly, "surely you are aware of the implications. The humans are untested. They are reckless. They are not suitable as symbols of our shared values." Aelith's eyes glowed faintly. "I have observed them. Their mistakes are visible, yes, but it is their response to mistakes that is remarkable. They take responsibility. They protect one another. They grow in ways others rarely do." Evan's chest tightened. He had lived a human life full of mistakes and minor victories, and now someone from another world, someone incredible, was noticing that. The hall was divided. Some envoys muttered about absurdity. Others, those less certain of themselves, began to wonder if they had underestimated humanity entirely. Aelith raised a hand, and silence fell like a soft veil. "This is not a decision based on power, wealth, or fear. This is a decision based on courage, empathy, and integrity. These qualities found in the human before me are worth far more than fleets, armies, or centuries of rule." Even as she spoke, Evan felt every pair of eyes in the room on him. He wanted to shrink into himself, to vanish from the attention, yet he did not. Somehow her words gave him courage. After a long moment, the elders of Thrill, a council of psychic beings known for calm judgment, spoke. Their voices were like wind through crystal. "You are bold," they said to Aelith, "but boldness alone is not proof of worth. How will the humans survive the pressures that follow this selection? The galaxy will test them in ways no other species has been tested." Aelith smiled, and it was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "That is precisely why I choose them. Humanity survives because it adapts, because it fights for what it believes is right, and because it trusts others even when trust seems impossible. These are the qualities I value." Evan's mind was spinning. The words were magnificent, but the reality of what they meant was terrifying. He had never commanded fleets. He had never negotiated between worlds. He had never faced life-or-death crises on an interstellar scale. And yet here he was, chosen as a symbol, as a partner, as a representative of human potential. The murmurs in the hall grew louder. Envoys began debating openly now. Some called it a foolish decision. Some called it revolutionary. Some whispered that this could reshape the galaxy forever. Then a new voice cut through, sharp and clear. It was Vian of the Corlands, a species famous for military power and ambition. "If this human is meant to represent anything, they will fail," Vian said. "Mark my words. No young species can survive the intrigues, the politics, the challenges of the galaxy. They will falter, and when they falter, it will reflect poorly on the Luminari." Aelith's gaze turned to Vian, steady and unyielding. "Perhaps," she said. "But humans, unlike many species, do not measure worth by prestige or fear. They measure worth by action, by courage, by loyalty. They may falter, yes, but they rise again. And that, Vian, is what makes them worthy." Vian's mouth opened, as if to respond, but no words came. The room seemed to hold its breath. Evan swallowed hard. Rise again, worthy, the words repeated in his mind. Could he live up to that? Could humanity? Aelith turned her attention back to him. "Human," she said softly, "come with me. We will walk together. The galaxy may be loud and chaotic, but together we will show what is possible." Evan nodded slowly, feeling both fear and determination. He stepped forward, moving beside the alien whose choice had changed everything. As they walked, some envoys stepped back respectfully. Others whispered anxiously. A few, those who had underestimated humanity, watched with growing concern. Outside the hall, the city of the Convergence sparkled with energy. Ships of every size and shape moved through the skyways. The lights of thousands of civilizations shone together, yet the galaxy seemed to pause, watching this human chosen by the Luminari. Aelith led Evan to a quiet observation chamber overlooking the city. The walls were clear, allowing a view of stars, cities, and ships stretching far into the distance. Here, the noise of the hall was gone, replaced by silence and the hum of energy fields. "You must understand," Aelith said, her voice gentle, "that every species will now watch you. Every leader, every scientist, every soldier. They will test you, doubt you, and try to manipulate you. Some will even try to harm you." Evan's stomach twisted. "Why me?" he asked. "Why would someone like you choose me? I'm just human," Aelith smiled. "Exactly," she said. "You are human, you are not perfect, you make mistakes, you care too much sometimes, and you think too little sometimes. But that is why you are capable of greatness. No one else carries both courage and humility so naturally. The galaxy has forgotten that sometimes true strength comes not from power but from character." Evan swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. He had never been told that humanity's simple, messy, unpredictable nature could be remarkable. And now, someone extraordinary was saying it mattered more than fleets, than wealth, than history itself. He began, then paused, unsure what to say. Words felt small. "I'll try," he whispered. Aelith nodded. "Do not try, act, be human, that is enough." For the first time, Evan felt not fear, but purpose. He looked out at the glittering city and the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and wonder, and yet here he was, chosen not for power, not for status, but for humanity itself. The chamber was quiet, but the galaxy outside would never be the same. And for the first time, Evan felt that maybe humanity could survive, not because they were the oldest, the strongest, or the cleverest, but because they were human. The convergence was only beginning. And so was his journey. The convergence continued, but for Evan, the galaxy had already changed. He was no longer just an observer. He was a symbol, chosen by Aelith of the Luminari, a being more respected than anyone else in the known universe. And the galaxy noticed. But admiration was not universal. Across the hall and throughout the city, whispers turned into plotting. The powerful races who had been passed over for Aelith's choice began to plan. Some wanted to discredit the human. Others wanted to challenge him directly. They questioned his worth, mocked his inexperience, and doubted that a human could survive the challenges ahead. Evan knew little of this, yet he could feel tension in the air. Every delegate he passed seemed to measure him, testing his reactions, trying to find weakness. He was aware that every small gesture, every word, could be watched, reported, or misinterpreted. Aelith led him through the city, showing him the structures and systems of the convergence. Energy highways flowed overhead like rivers of light. Observation towers stretched into the sky. Ships of hundreds of species moved in precise, elegant formations. Everything was a marvel, everything was alive with purpose. "This is only part of what you will face," Aelith said, her voice calm but firm. "The galaxy is vast. It is full of challenges, and they will not all be visible. Some will come as words, some as actions, some as traps." Evan nodded, trying to absorb her words. "I will try," he said again. Aelith shook her head gently. "Do not try, act, observe, adapt. That is how humans survive." Just as they were finishing their walk, the first real test arrived. An alarm rang throughout the convergent city, a deep, resonating tone that set every delegate on edge. The central energy grid, responsible for powering the entire city, was failing. Lights flickered, ships stalled in the airways, and communication systems went silent. Panic spread quickly. Some envoys froze, some shouted orders, but many had no plan. Many had relied on machines, protocols, and hierarchy to protect them. They were unprepared for chaos. Evan felt a surge of fear. He had never dealt with such a situation before, yet as he looked at the panic around him, he remembered Aelith's words. Act, observe, adapt. He turned to her. What should we do?" Aelith's eyes softened. "You will know." It was strange, but he did. He ran to the nearest communications console. It was offline, but he remembered the basic principles of energy flow he had studied during his training. He started rerouting minor channels, trying to stabilize critical systems. It was not perfect. It was not elegant, but it worked enough to bring some lights back and allow minimal communications. Aelith watched him quietly, not interfering. "Humans find solutions," she said softly, "even in the face of uncertainty," delegates noticed. Slowly, the focus shifted from panic to action. Some humans and humanoid species began following Evan's directions. Even the younger species, usually ignored, found confidence in his calm. Then the first real obstacle appeared. A heavy cargo ship, part of the city's support fleet, had lost control in the energy blackout. It was falling toward the central plaza, where hundreds of delegates were still assembling. Panic grew. Most envoys stepped back, unsure of what to do. Evan ran forward. Using a control panel on the observation tower, he calculated the ship's trajectory. He guided the emergency drones to intercept it. Small adjustments, repeated commands, and quick thinking kept the falling ship from crashing. Finally, the ship touched down safely at a secondary landing pad. Gasps of relief filled the air. A few delegates bowed in respect. Others stared in disbelief. Aelith placed her hand gently on Evan's shoulder. "This is why I chose you," she said. "Not because humans are perfect, but because they do not stop. They do not wait for instructions. They act, they adapt, and they protect." Evan felt a rush of both relief and pride. He had done something, yes, but more importantly, he had acted when others hesitated. Yet the test was far from over. The energy grid problem was only the beginning. A sudden cyber attack from an unknown source threatened the city's administrative systems. Data streams were corrupted. Communication networks became unreliable. Ships were stranded in the airways. Many species panicked, sending contradictory orders. Evan did not know who was responsible. He did not know the full scope. He only knew that he had to act. He called out to anyone willing to help. Delegates from minor species responded first. Together, they formed a small team, sharing knowledge, improvising methods, and solving problems step by step. Evan's human ingenuity became evident. He used simple, logical solutions, often ignoring overly complicated protocols that the older species relied on. Sometimes it meant breaking rules, but always safely and with purpose. Aelith watched quietly, knowing this was exactly what the galaxy needed to see. Humans, when trusted and given responsibility, could shine even in situations that seemed hopeless. By the end of the first cycle, the blackout was contained, the city was stabilized, and communications had been restored. The delegates were shaken, but they were alive, and more importantly, they had seen a human act decisively in the face of chaos. Afterward, Evan sat with Aelith in the observation chamber again. The city below was calm now, lights steady and energy flowing smoothly. "You did well," Aelith said, her glow softening. "You did not just survive, you led." Evan shook his head. "I don't know if I led. I just tried to do what seemed right." "That is leadership," she said. "Not thinking of yourself, not thinking of fear, acting because it is necessary, acting because you care." Evan looked at her, still unsure if he deserved the praise, but inside something had shifted. He realized that humans, in their simplicity and unpredictability, could make a difference. They were not perfect, but their actions mattered. Word of the humans' role spread quickly. The delegates who had mocked or doubted him began to whisper differently. Some grudgingly respected his actions. Some, still prideful, plotted how to challenge him next. But now the galaxy could not ignore him. Even as he processed what had happened, Aelith spoke again. "Evan, this was your first test. There will be more. Some will come as crises. Some will come as challenges to your worth. Some will come as questions about humanity itself." He nodded. I will face them. I have to." "Do not forget," she said. "You do not face them alone, but you must act as a human. That is your greatest strength." The city below was quiet now, but the energy of the convergence pulsed through the air. Ships returned to their patterns. Lights glimmered in the towers. And the delegates, for all their pride and power, now had a new measure of respect, not for the strongest, the oldest, or the most cunning, but for a species that could rise in the face of uncertainty. Evan gazed out at the stars, feeling both small and significant. He had survived the first test, and the galaxy had begun to notice humanity's unique power, but deep in the shadows of the convergent city, other beings watched. Some were impressed, some were curious, some were not pleased at all. And as the first test ended, he sensed that the next challenge would come sooner than he imagined. The galaxy was watching, and Evan realized that being chosen was not an honor alone, it was a responsibility. And humanity was only beginning to show what it could do. The calm after the first crisis lasted only a few cycles. For the galaxy, a single human saving lives was unprecedented. Some envoys were impressed, some were wary. Some, especially those who had sought Aelith's favor and been passed over, felt anger simmering beneath polite faces. Evan could feel the tension as he walked through the convergent city with Aelith. The streets sparkled with energy lights and hovering ships, but every step carried scrutiny. Whispers followed him from balconies, observation decks, and even the shadows of the towers. He had become a symbol, whether he wanted it or not. "Do they all dislike me?" Evan asked softly, keeping pace with Aelith. "They doubt," Aelith replied calmly. "Many cannot understand why I chose a human. Their pride blinds them. Some will challenge you. Some will try to manipulate situations to their advantage." "You must be prepared," Evan nodded. "I thought the first test was the hardest." Aelith shook her head. "The first test was only a warning. What comes next is far more deliberate." The warning came sooner than Evan expected. A meeting had been arranged by the Convergence Council, a secret session in the Hall of Decisions. The delegates who had opposed his selection demanded that he attend. Aelith insisted he come, saying, "This is a chance to show humanity's worth. Do not shrink. Show your mind and heart." When Evan entered the hall, the atmosphere was icy. Delegates sat in semicircular rows, each representing their species, each radiating doubt or hostility. The Tharvian, the Vian, and the Corvites sat prominently, their eyes fixed on him. "You are the human Aelith chose," said the Tharvian envoy, voice low but sharp. "We wish to understand why. Explain how a young, inexperienced species could possibly serve as a symbol for the galaxy." Evan swallowed. He looked around. These were the galaxy's finest minds, warriors, and leaders, and they were judging him not by what he had done but by what they believed humans could never do. He remembered Aelith's words: "Act, observe, adapt." "I will answer as best I can," he said, voice steady. "Humans are not perfect. We are small, we are young, and we make mistakes. But we also learn, we adapt, we protect each other. We do not act only for ourselves, we act because it is right. That is why I was chosen." Some delegates scoffed, some murmured. A few leaned in, listening with quiet curiosity. "And what of your previous action?" the Corvite asked. "The city crisis, was it chance or skill?" "It was both," Evan replied honestly. I used what I had learned. I observed the problem, I acted, and I adapted when things did not go as expected. Anyone could have done it if they stayed calm and focused. I did it because people were in danger. The hall was silent. A few of the older species, used to power and tradition, found it difficult to argue with truth and humility. But the Vian was not convinced. "You speak well, human," they said, "but words are not proof. What guarantee do we have that your species will survive the next challenge? That you will not fail when stakes are higher?" Evan took a deep breath. "We may fail, but humans try again, and we learn from failure. That is why we survive. That is why we can be trusted." A ripple went through the council. Not all envoys were convinced, but some began to consider a truth they had long ignored. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability carried strength. The meeting ended with no formal resolution. The delegates were left talking among themselves, divided between skepticism and grudging respect. But one thing was clear: humanity had survived scrutiny, and that was only the beginning. Outside, the city lights shone bright. Ships moved smoothly in the airways. But in the shadows of the convergence, plotting had begun. The Tharvian, the Vian, and the Quarvites convened in secret. "This human," the Tharvian said, "cannot remain a symbol. The Luminari's choice undermines centuries of tradition. If we cannot remove him, we must test him further and publicly." "A public test," Vian said, eyes narrowing, "one that will show the galaxy whether humans are truly capable." "And if he survives?" asked the Quarvite. "Then we will see," the Tharvian replied, "whether humanity is to be admired or feared." Back with Aelith, Evan was unaware of the plotting, but he felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. He had learned that being chosen was more than honor, it was responsibility. The next challenge came suddenly. A message from the Central Convergence Command flashed across the city network. A delegation from a volatile world, the Xerans, had refused to cooperate with energy transfers, threatening city-wide systems. If the problem escalated, lives could be lost. "This is your chance," Aelith said, her eyes steady. "Show them why humans deserve trust. Lead, human." Evan nodded. His heart raced. He ran toward the control hub, analyzing the situation as he went. The Xerans had not attacked physically. They had blocked energy flows in a calculated, deliberate manner. Most species would have panicked or sent armies to enforce compliance, but Evan knew that force alone would escalate the problem. Instead, he acted with reason and communication. He contacted the Xeran delegates directly. "I understand you are blocking the energy," he said calmly. "We need it restored to protect the city. Let's find a way that works for both sides." The Xerans were skeptical. "Why should we trust a human?" they asked. "Because we have no choice but to survive together," Evan replied. "If we do not cooperate, everyone suffers. I am asking you to help." It took hours of negotiation, patience, and compromise. Evan proposed a system of temporary energy reserves and rerouted channels that preserved Xeran autonomy while restoring critical functions. Slowly, the Xerans agreed. The energy system stabilized. Ships could move again. The city returned to normal. Delegates and onlookers watched in amazement. A human, young, inexperienced, and underestimated, had solved a crisis without force, without authority, simply by thinking, listening, and acting with purpose. Aelith observed silently, proud. "This is why I chose you," she said. "Not because humans are perfect, but because they rise when the galaxy expects them to fall." Evan finally allowed himself a deep breath. He had faced challenge after challenge, but he had acted decisively. And in doing so, he had shown that humanity's power was not in strength or history, but in courage, creativity, and integrity. Yet, even as he celebrated small victories, shadows gathered. Across the city, other delegates whispered, prepared to test him further. Some envoys plotted in secret. Others openly challenged his presence, claiming that humans were too young, too emotional, and too fragile to represent the galaxy. Evan realized that being chosen was no longer a matter of honor. It was a call to constant action. Every decision mattered. Every misstep could be used against him. Every success was only the beginning of scrutiny, and Aelith was always beside him, calm and unwavering. She did not shield him from the galaxy's judgment. Instead, she guided him, teaching him how to act decisively and maintain clarity even under immense pressure. Together, they walked through the streets of the city, observing energy flows, coordinating with minor species, and listening to delegates. Evan learned to adapt quickly, to improvise, and to trust his instincts. By the end of the cycle, the galaxy had begun to change its view of humanity. Those who had doubted now watched carefully. Those who had mocked now whispered warnings. And some, even in secret, began to hope that perhaps humans were not so fragile after all. But deep inside, Evan understood one truth. The next challenge would be even harder. The galaxy would not allow a human to rise without testing him further. And these tests would not always come as crises. Sometimes they would come as deceit, manipulation, or impossible choices. The convergent city sparkled under the stars, calm on the surface, but alive with tension beneath. And in that city, a human named Evan Carter had become the symbol of a species that had long been underestimated, but one that was beginning to show the galaxy what it was truly capable of. The shadows of the convergence watched. And the next test was already taking shape. The galaxy held its breath. The convergent city, shining like a jewel under distant stars, was calm on the surface, but beneath, tension simmered. Every delegate who had once doubted humanity was watching now. Every rival species, every whispering council, and every observer from distant systems had gathered for the final test. This test was not an accident. It was deliberate. A massive energy storm had formed near the city, unlike anything recorded in galactic history. Ships and satellites were at risk. Energy grids threatened to overload. Communications might fail entirely. But this was not only a test of skill, it was a test of trust, diplomacy, and courage. The galaxy's leaders had agreed to make this challenge public. They wanted to see whether the human could survive the judgment of allies and rivals alike. Evan Carter stood at the heart of the control hub, flanked by Aelith. He had faced challenges before, emergencies, energy failures, and diplomatic obstacles, but never like this. The stakes were higher, the danger more immediate, and the galaxy itself watching. Aelith's voice was calm, almost gentle. Remember what you are, Evan, not the youngest, not the weakest, not the inexperienced. You are human, that is your greatest strength. Act wisely, act decisively, and act with courage. Evan swallowed. The words settled in him like armor. I understand, he said. The storm approached fast. Ships in the airways were at risk of collision. Floating structures could collapse if energy flows fluctuated. Communication with distant delegates might fail entirely. Panic had begun to ripple through the city. Evan took a deep breath. We will organize the evacuation first, he said. No one gets hurt if we do this step by step. Using every skill he had learned, he assigned humans and minor species to critical points. Energy was rerouted to stabilize shields. Communication channels were simplified so everyone could understand instructions. Emergency drones were sent to guide stranded ships to safe landing zones. Delegates from other species began to follow his guidance. Some did so reluctantly. Others, inspired by the calm certainty of a human, moved quickly to help. The storm was relentless. Lightning-like bursts of energy crackled across the skies. The central energy grid trembled. A massive cargo station swayed above the city, threatening to crash. Evan calculated trajectories, coordinated teams, and rerouted energy again and again. He worked without pause, knowing that hesitation could cost lives. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time blurred in the intensity of action. Finally, the worst of the storm approached. The cargo station tilted dangerously, too massive for drones to stabilize completely. Evan acted quickly. He instructed a team of engineers, human and alien alike, to attach emergency tethers, redirect magnetic fields, and use energy dampeners. It was a delicate balance. One wrong move could destroy the station. One miscalculation could kill hundreds. Evan's mind raced. He relied on instinct, logic, and the simple human determination that had carried him through every test so far. Step by step, action by action, the station stabilized. A wave of relief passed through the city as lights steadied. Ships returned to controlled flight. The energy grid returned to safe levels, and the storm, though still raging, could no longer harm the city. The delegates who had doubted humanity looked on in stunned silence. Even the most proud and arrogant species could not ignore what they had witnessed. Aelith stepped forward, her presence calm and radiant. Evan Carter, she said, her voice carrying across the observation chamber, you have faced every test the galaxy could give. You have acted wisely, courageously, and with integrity. You have shown that humanity's strength lies not in fleets, not in power, but in character, determination, and the will to do what is right. The hall erupted in quiet murmurs of approval, then applause. Many delegates, those who had once plotted against him, bowed in recognition. Some could not help but smile at the human who had risen above expectation. Evan finally allowed himself to breathe. His body was exhausted, his mind buzzing, but a sense of calm satisfaction settled over him. Humanity had faced the galaxy's judgment and passed. Aelith stood beside him, her glow bright and proud. "You see, Evan," she said, "humans are remarkable not because they are perfect, but because they rise when others fall, adapt when faced with challenges, and act with courage even when the odds are against them. You have done more than survive. You have inspired the galaxy." Evan looked at her, feeling something he had never felt before. Recognition not only for himself, but for all of humanity. The species that had been underestimated, mocked, and dismissed had now proven its worth in the heart of the galaxy. Across the convergent city, the energy storm finally subsided. The sky cleared, revealing stars and distant planets. Ships moved in formation once more. The lights of the city shone like a beacon, symbolizing hope, courage, and unity. Delegates approached Evan, offering praise, questions, and even alliances. The galaxy had changed its perspective. Humans were no longer just a young, unpredictable species. They were capable of leadership, innovation, and extraordinary courage. Even those who had opposed him most vehemently could not deny the truth. Humanity had shown its value. Evan felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Aelith. "Do you see now?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. "I see that we can make a difference. That we can rise to the challenges of the galaxy," she smiled. "And this is only the beginning." The final ceremony of the convergence commenced. Aelith formally announced Evan's role as a representative of humanity, chosen not for power or tradition, but for character, courage, and integrity. She spoke of the lessons the galaxy had learned. That strength is not only measured in fleets or technology, but in action, adaptability, and the will to do what is right. Delegates applauded. Some cheered, some simply watched in awe. And the humans present, quiet and humble as ever, stood tall for the first time, feeling the recognition of an entire galaxy. Evan took a deep breath, looking out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of his family, of humanity itself. He realized that being chosen was not just an honor, it was a responsibility. Humanity had been given a chance to step forward, to show its worth, and to inspire others, and he knew that this was only the beginning. Later, in the quiet of the observation chamber, Aelith turned to Evan. "The galaxy will continue to test you," she said. "But now they will do so with respect. They will watch humanity more closely, but they will also learn from you as you have learned from them. This is the start of a new era." Evan nodded, feeling the weight and hope of her words. "We won't let them down," he said. Aelith smiled. "No, Evan, humanity never does." Outside, the convergent city gleamed in the starlight. Ships moved in elegant formations. Lights danced across towers, and the galaxy, once skeptical and dismissive, now understood something profound. Humans were not the strongest. Humans were not the oldest. Humans were imperfect, emotional, and unpredictable. But humans acted with courage, adapted when others hesitated, and inspired hope where others saw despair. And that, the galaxy realized, made humanity extraordinary. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that night, as if acknowledging the rise of a species that had once been underestimated, but now stood proudly among the galaxy's greatest. Evan looked out at the stars beside Aelith, and for the first time felt the full weight of what had been achieved. The galaxy had judged humanity, and humanity had risen. The convergence had ended. But the story of humans, of courage, of adaptation, and of hope had only just begun, and the universe would never underestimate them again.